Story time, let's get ready with Fergie and friends. Story time, let's get ready with Fergie and friends. With Fergie and friends. With Fergie and friends.
This is a helping hand story. It's really important because I really don't believe anyone should be bullied. And so I thought I'd read you James and the Bullies. Once you read it to your child or your child reads it, at the end there is 10 helpful hints from a child psychologist, Dr. Wolfson, as to how you can help your child notice if they're being bullied. James felt sick every morning as he made his way to school. It wasn't the lessons that worried him. He quite liked those. It was the bits in between, particularly break time. James was small for his age, and some of the bigger boys used to tease him whenever they saw him. Over time, the teasing had got worse and turned to pushing and shoving. There he is, going to school, looking really worried. One break time, one of the boys, John, took it even further, pushing James against a wall and punching him when the teacher was not looking. James wanted to fight back, but he knew it was what John wanted and would only make things worse. That evening, James's mum asked him about his grazed knees and bruises. We were playing around in the playground, said James, and I fell over. Which was not completely truthful. Try to be more careful, said his mum sternly. James desperately wanted to tell his mum the real reason why he had cuts and bruises, but he felt that he could get into even more trouble if he did. It was his fault. He was not liked, and up to him to sort it out. The next day, James's tummy really was sore, but he said nothing and went to school. For the next few days, James spent as much time as possible playing with other children so that he was always in a group. But one morning, John and his friend Daniel got him on his own, and they started to push and tease him again. James ducked between them and ran into the classroom, where he put his head in his hands and sobbed. A few minutes later, Amy, who sat next to James in class, came in and saw James crying. She rushed over saying, "Whatever's the matter?" So James told Amy what had happened and sobbed. So there I am, too small and no use to anyone. "You're a lot of use," said Amy. "You can run fast and you're funny." "Well, I don't feel funny. I'm miserable," said James. "You must tell your mum and dad," said Amy. "They wouldn't understand." "Then you should tell Mrs. Daventry." "Tell me what?" said a voice from the door. They both turned to see Mrs. Daventry, the form teacher, standing at the door. Nothing, said James quickly. Nothing at all, and glared at Amy to keep quiet. That evening, James thought about what Amy had said. He felt unable to tell his dad, but perhaps his mum would listen. "Mum," he said as he was eating his tea, "if I tell you something, will you absolutely promise not to tell Mrs. Daventry?" "Of course," said Mum. "You know you can tell Dad and me anything." James poured out his story and cried when he had finished, not because he was sad, but because he was so happy to have shared his problem. His mum stroked his hair, saying, "I wish you'd told me sooner, but together we can solve this problem. We just need to make a plan." "I'm going to fight back," said James. "No, you're not," replied Mum. "You would be behaving just as badly as they are, and that is just what they want." They talked for a long time, and finally Mum said, "You will have to let me talk to Mrs. Daventry. She needs to know." James was upset at first, but then he decided to trust his mum. He always had, and it had always been the right thing to do. Next morning, though, he did not feel so brave and told his mum he did not want to go to school. "Oh, yes, you are," said Mum, "and with your head held high. I've spoken to Mrs. Daventry, and this is the day we all start to solve this problem." In class, Mrs. Daventry told everyone about the project for next week and that James would be the project leader. At break time, one of the teachers organised a game. James joined in happily and forgot about his troubles for a little while. That evening at home, James found that his bedroom had been changed. All around the walls were certificates and prizes that James had won. Some of them were for little things, like the wrapper from the chocolate bar he'd won as a prize for drawing when he was 4. Others were for sport when he was older. Maybe I am some use after all, he said to himself. As the days went past, James began to feel better about himself. He smiled more and walked tall, which has nothing to do with anyone's height. His project was a great success, and the children all voted for James to be the project leader again soon. John and Daniel seemed less interested in teasing him, though one day as he walked past them, John said, "So James, just how tall are you feeling today?" "Tall enough," said James and smiled. I really hope this helps, and if you are being bullied, I hope you've heard, and if you're not being bullied, please be nice to every single person. A big smile takes a minute and means so much.
With Fergie and friends, with Fergie and friends.